Welcome to the next episode of our podcast, Indiana is Ag+Bio+Science. It is presented by AgriNovus Indiana and Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick, the host of Inside Indiana Business, also the host of this weekly podcast where we have in-depth conversations with the leaders, innovators, and also entrepreneurs in Indiana's Ag+Bio+Science sector. That sector where food, ag, science, and technology all converge. This week, excited to sit down with Ting Gootee, the Chief Investment Officer at Elevate Ventures. And Ting, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Gerry.
You are busy. Elevate is a place where it's really happening right now. We want to get into that in a moment, but we always like to explore a bit on how you got to where you are and a little bit about your background, where you grew up. We'll start with that.
Yeah, I actually grew up in China, but I have been a Hoosier since 2001. Purdue brought me here for grad school, and from there I went on to work for a hedge fund for about 3 years. That's what really first introduced me to the world of finance. And the last 10 plus years, that's been all in venture capital in Indiana. Yeah. Very thrilled to be here.
Yeah, interesting. So Purdue grad school brought you to the United States. I think do you have IU lineage in there too?
Yeah, Kelly MBA. So I got Purdue and IU. Sometimes I was joking about if I ever go back to PhD, Notre Dame will be my ideal choice.
Very good. Talk about your hedge fund experience and how that experience, those 3 years, I think you said, perhaps it benefits you and what you're doing now.
Yeah, that's really the first foray for me from an exposure standpoint to the world of finance. I was originally trained in liberal arts, and the hedge fund really introduced me to an industry where a lot of professionals, smart, driven, really want to make an impact, a difference on industries and societies. And that's what piqued my interest, and I decided to brush up on my number crunching skills, got back to MBA, and led to today, really the last decade has been at Elevate.
Okay, talk about Elevate Ventures, because that is something that you talk about making a difference. I think really is making a difference in Indiana, around the state. Give us the description, the model for Elevate Ventures.
Yeah, so Elevate's primary mission is to develop and nurture high potential businesses into venture-backed, high-growth companies in Indiana. And we try to accomplish that mission through two particular strategies. First one is probably what we're mostly widely known for, which is making at-risk seed and early-stage investments. Since 2010, we provided capital, 90+ million total, to about 300+ companies around the state of Indiana. And the second piece, very correlated to that first capital investment strategy, is to actively build community partnerships to catalyze entrepreneurial venture communities around each communities around the state. Currently, we have 5 active partnerships in Fort Wayne, South Bend, Elkhart, Jeffersonville, New Albany, Bloomington, Columbus, and last but not least, Evansville and Jasper areas.
So really a nice statewide footprint there. Talk about these partnerships in these individual regions and how they work and what they're intended to do.
Yeah, excellent question. These regional partnerships are really intend to provide connectivity and education and awareness resources and advocacy for aspiring entrepreneurs. So capital is only one piece, but the talent piece, customer piece, and education piece are an integral part of these partnerships.
How are you sensing, because I think over time there's been, Indiana has not been perhaps as good as it should be in regional cooperation and in getting along and participating. That seems to be changing. Do you sense that is changing when you talk about these regional partnerships?
Absolutely. The two things we're seeing in the last few years, one is regions, stakeholder base within the region are really actively coming together to execute a very long-term strategic plan. That's the first piece that was very encouraging. And then secondarily, they're not even thinking about their own region. They're curious about what's happening elsewhere and how they can do better, maybe even collaborating better. So those are two encouraging signs we've seen around the state.
Yeah. Elevate Ventures released the 2018 Indiana Venture Report earlier this year. That report says Indiana, while some positive signs certainly, actually remains behind other states in the Midwest for venture capital investment. Tell us more about that finding, really. And was it a surprise?
Yeah, it was a little bit surprised in the sense of just from a relative, even though if you look at Indiana comparing to ourselves, 2018 has been a banner year for us in the last decade, really the second highest investment capital record year since 2009. 2009 was somewhat skewed by ExactTarget, a $70 million round by ExactTarget. So if you're looking back in Indiana history, the signs has been fairly encouraging. However, you compare us to the rest of the country, even to our neighboring states, we're still lagging behind. So that tells us that we'll still have a lot of work to do.
What do you think needs to be done to kind of accelerate growth? Is there something that can be done now to help kind of light a fire?
Yeah, great question. Part of the report reviewed to us, there are some positive signs. There are increased deal counts, there are increased dollar amounts, there are increased number, probably more importantly, there are increasing number of active professionally managed venture funds here in our state. So if this report would have been issued 5 years ago, firms like High Alpha, High Park, wouldn't be even on the report. 10 years ago, Elevate wouldn't even be on the report. So those are the encouraging signs. But to your question specifically, we do seem to have a very healthy and robust startup community here. The next mission is to make sure to generate the next phase of the growth for these companies. I think in local community we call it scale-ups. In the coastal VC verbiage, we call it breakout companies. That really kind of companies get from $1 million to $5 million revenue to 10, 20, 50 to hundreds. So those are the next phase of growth. There's an opportunity for us, along with all the community stakeholders, to provide a little more intentional, concerted effort in creating these breakout companies.
Yeah. How about the ag-bioscience, ag-tech sector? Are you seeing growing interest in ag-tech? And I don't know if you can name any companies, ag-bioscience companies that maybe are have been or are currently in Elevate's portfolio.
We're investors at heart, so we typically read the market temperature based on the investor interest in this particular market. With the help of AgriNovus, I know they're doing great work. They're exposing the local community here to the great industry. But three things: the number of venture funds specifically focused on ag sector here has been increasing, particularly three in our particular market, and we know we're actively looking for deal flow. Those are Open Prairie Ventures. They have a brand new fund. Cultivation Sandbox, they just have a brand new fund, $135 million fund. They're actively looking for opportunities. And last but not least, St. Louis-based Cultivation Capital. These are the partners we know and trust that they're actively looking for opportunities here. Specific to our investments in ag sector, we, like I mentioned earlier, we have total about 300 companies in our overall portfolio, roughly 3 or 4%, a dozen companies in ag specific. From an investment thesis standpoint, Elevate is relatively sector agnostics, but that also means we're not deep ag-specific focused investors, so we don't pretend to have ag sector-specific expertise in investing in those type of opportunities, but we do have a lot of expertise in technology. We have a big portfolio of ours in tech-enabled products and services, so our investment thesis in ag sector has been tech-enabled opportunities that include Spencer. We were invested in some Spencer Technologies, Agbioscience, and B Corp, just to name a few. Those are the same tech-enabled technology investment themes.
Yeah, and we've had several of those on the podcast talking about their successes. Elevate is a presenting sponsor at the AG+BIO+SCIENCE Startup Showcase that's actually tomorrow. Why does this type of collaboration with partners like AgriNovus and Purdue Ventures, why do these kinds of partnerships matter?
I think it goes back to our fundamental belief that drive our strategy that really takes a community to build a type of breakout companies. For AgriNovus, particularly the type of industry connectivity and advocacy is important. I know a number of companies have benefited greatly from their activities. And for Purdue, for instance, we have a specifically focused Elevate Purdue Foundry Fund that have really supported, invested in 70 plus companies in the last 4 years. Again, that's creating that investment pipeline and deal flow for our community.
Give you a final question on what's next at Elevate. The Elevate, there's been an elevation of activity and profile around the state. What do you see as next for Elevate Ventures?
Wow, so many possibilities. We'll take this opportunity to brag on ourselves a little bit. We have been ranked consistently by PitchBook as #1 most active VCs in the Great Lakes. I think there's a lot more deal momentum for us. Hopefully we'll continue that momentum, really put Indiana as one of the hotbed for venture capital activities.
Very good. Well, Ting Gootee, thank you for joining us this week. The work that you and Chris Lamoth and the entire team at Elevate Ventures are doing is really making a difference in the state of Indiana. Ting is the Chief Investment Officer at Elevate Ventures, and we appreciate your insights into the Agbiosciences and really appreciate you joining this week on the AG+BIO+SCIENCE podcast. This is a weekly production, a partnership between AgriNovus Indiana and Inside Indiana Business. And if you are interested in attending the AG+BIO+SCIENCE Startup Showcase presented by AgriNovus, Purdue Ventures, and Elevate Ventures tomorrow, that's April 23, visit agrinovusindiana.com to RSVP. That's agrinovusindiana.com to RSVP. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerry Dick. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is a product of Inside Indiana Business, hosted by Gerry Dick, produced by Libby Fritz and Joe Ullery, and was recorded on location at Launch Fishers. More people get Indiana business news from Inside Indiana Business than any other source.